few weeks ago, I was standing in the kitchen sending a text message while my 6-year-old sister was repeatedly asking me to play a game with her. I just kept nodding, and she finally said, "Abby, which is more important, your cell phone or your little sister?" At 6 years old, Bella really knows how to make someone feel guilty. But with that question, Bella also demonstrated that she has a better understanding of what is important than I, or many other grown-ups, do. We're growing even farther away from this understanding as we spend 8.5 hours of our day looking at a screen. This includes more than just the computer. It also includes the television, smartphone, and iPad, just to name a few. Everyone thinks they're the most important thing in your life, but that is usually far from the truth. At this point in high school, the pressure is on for me and my peers to get into college, which means getting good grades, taking leadership roles in clubs, enrolling in hard classes, and trying to maintain sanity at the same time. I pile everything on, as do most of my peers, because we tend to believe that if we aren't busy, our time isn't being spent in a worthwhile manner. This isn't just a high school problem either. Because of this huge increase in technology, it is harder to leave your work at work. And with emails coming in at any point of the day, family dinners can be interrupted by a seemingly important work email that, in reality, could have waited until the morning. But if we would actually focus on what we need to be doing and not text through it, it would be easier to allow ourselves to have a few hours of free time every day, to develop relationships with family, friends, God, and ourselves. But since we have a fear of not being scheduled back to back all day long, of missing out on something big, we refuse to rest. Always being plugged in leads to another problem: not being fully present anywhere we go. Whether we are out to lunch with friends, in class, at church, or even asleep, we don't hesitate to answer a text message or a phone call, completely interrupting the real world. My best friend once told the group we were with to be with who you are with, a piece of advice I have found to be very meaningful. Not only have you made the choice to be with these people, but they have also made the choice to spend time with you, so you should respect their time as well. My generation and the generation before it have bad reputations. We have been told time and time again that we are lazy, that our society is quick fix, which is what people blame for issues like war and divorce. Instead of talking through our problems and trying to come up with solutions, we expect some miracle remedy, and if we don't receive that miracle remedy, we just move on. I think the problem is that we don't recognize that we need to reassess our priorities. I've noticed myself competing, trying to sound busier than I actually am, but I realized that Jesus would have told me to settle down, to take a break. I realized that work shouldn't be more important than family, that social networking shouldn't be more valuable than meeting up with a friend. There are 24 hours in a day. We spend 8 of them sleeping and 8.5 of them using technology. That leaves us only 7.5 hours when we are awake and attentive. If we took part of those 7.5 hours and maybe shaved off some of those 8.5, to call our grandparents, to say a prayer and actually put thought behind the words, to play trains with our little sisters, to patch up a relationship with a friend, to meditate, or even just to go for a walk alone, we could start to turn our reputation around. The need to be constantly in the loop, constantly multitasking, is overrated. By being this way, it is easy to neglect the most important things because we don't put all of our focus on them. Our time would be more valuable if we weren't always doing 3 things at once, because the important things would get done more quickly, and we would probably find that there is a lot more time in the day to rest than we think. I have been blessed with 3 little sisters. Bella, who I already mentioned, is 6. Carly is 16, and Mina is 3. In the fall, Mina, the youngest, was admitted to the hospital due to severe stomach pains. The doctors insisted they didn't know what was wrong with her, and the days passed, but she wasn't getting better. The stress was growing, and it was easy to feel distant from family, friends, and even God. Finally, they discovered that she had bowel perforations, which essentially means that she had holes in her intestines. This meant she would have an emergency operation that day. A few days went by, and her body was rejecting food, so she would need another operation. There were several complications. Her lungs were collapsing, she needed to regain strength to walk, and worst of all, the doctors didn't know what caused this to happen. It was more than 2 weeks before she would be released. Despite the fact that Mina and my mom, who was in the hospital 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, had surpassed everyone else on my priority list, I still don't think I spent as much time with them as I should have. There were days when I would make it in for an hour and rush out, coming from one thing to another because I didn't want to deal with the consequences of being late for something else. I know now that I would have been forgiven for being late, if not by these other people, at least by God. But I didn't realize that at the time. Even when I was feeling guilty for not spending enough time with her, Mina recognized my presence, even on the short visits, and cherished it in a way that shows that she understands how valuable time can be. Showing up with just enough time to paint her nails and not much else made me feel bad. But when I left, assuring her that I would be back in the morning was enough to make her smile. Although Mina really was the most important person in my life in those moments, she didn't automatically assume she was, like so many other people do. Mina was aware, despite being only 2 years old at the time, that everyone had other priorities. I think I could learn a lot from this. Prioritizing my time is obviously important, but recognizing and respecting that others are also trying to do the same is just as important. Jesus and the apostles never had any time to themselves because everyone they knew wanted to be a priority. Their time wasn't really theirs. It belonged to their community. For the people around them, this was great. They were the top priority in the lives of the apostles. But these men were often too busy to even eat, much less do anything else. We, however, are not the apostles. We should not hesitate to tell people that we have other commitments, to take a break and leave the important stuff to the side for a minute or two. And we should be willing to forgive those who do the same. In this scripture reading, Jesus recognizes the importance of resting and taking time for oneself, even for the apostles, who never put themselves first. When the apostles finally take a break and leave, people still flock to this place to be healed, never stopping to consider that Jesus might need to rest. Like them, we should recognize that those people in our lives that we go to when we have a problem have other things going on too. While I'm growing up and becoming busier, so is everyone else around me. Most noticeably for me, these 3 little sisters. This is usually pretty cool because it means I get to go to plays, dance recitals, and soccer games, and cheer when they do something good and pretend we're not related when they do something bad. Last year, Bella, the 6-year-old, played Park District soccer. Little kid soccer is pretty much the same anywhere. They all kick the ball around and run all over the field, and no one knows what the score is, but it's hilarious to watch. Bella's games were on Saturday mornings, and some of them were painfully early for me to wake up and go to. One day, she had a 10 a.m. game, and I had plans to meet my dad for lunch afterwards. I got up pretty late and took forever to get ready, which made me miss kickoff and Bella's first rotation of playtime. She noticed I wasn't there in the beginning, and since I told her I would be, she approached me with a very disappointed face. I explained why I was late and that I was sorry, but I would have to leave early too. Bella was obviously not too happy with me, but after a few seconds, and without saying anything hurtful, she shrugged her shoulders and said that the only thing that matters is that I was there for a little while. This comment has stuck with me because she really was right. While she is your typical first grader, she cries when she doesn't get her way, and sometimes it's hard for her to share her Barbies. She understands and is able to let go of certain things in an admirable way. I know I should have set my alarm for earlier, actually gotten up and ready in respectable amount of time, and been at her game as long as I could have. And Bella probably thought that too. But she forgave me and was happy for the time I was there. The point is that she recognized time is valuable, that I was trying, and was grateful for the small amount of time I gave her that morning, even though it could have been more.